r/AskReddit. What's the most refreshing act of I don't give a duck that you've ever witnessed? In high school a friend of mine got piss-loaded drunk. I mean, it's a miracle he didn't end up in the hospital. And he didn't have a drive home from the party, so what does he do? He calls the police and says, yeah, there's some drunk ducker walking up 3rd Street yelling, and what does he do then? Walks up 3rd Street till they pick him up and drive him to his mother's house. I had a friend that used to do this in college, but with pizza delivery drivers. He would walk into the shop and order a pizza to be delivered to his home, then ask if he could hop in. Worked about 75% of the time. Your version seems less risky and more rewarding. It's about the price of an Uber anyways, and you get a pizza when you get home too. Pizza places should start provide this service. Watched a man get half tripped up by an elderly woman while rounding a corner. He dropped his drumstick, ice cream, cone as this happened. He looked at the woman, who was apologizing profusely, stared for a few seconds, then pulled another drumstick from his pocket. He then carried on without saying a word to anybody. The ultimate power move. Ever since he was a kid he had always walked around with 2 cones in his pocket, just waiting for this to happen. And it finally did. I was at the gym recently and overheard a guy talking on the phone to someone who I presume was his wife. The conversation went something like this: I just need another 10 or 15 minutes to finish up. Just another 10 or 15 minutes. Just another 10 or 15 minutes. Just another 10 or 15 minutes. Just another. Okay, fine, I'm leaving now. He then hung up and spent the next 10 to 15 minutes finishing up his routine. He realized he wasn't speaking her language. I'm on my way. While she hasn't even showered yet. I'm almost there. Still at home wondering what to wear. I'll be ready in 5 minutes. Which 5 minutes exclamation point. Guy at my work making over 100k is getting shut for something stupid for the last time from this supervisor that nobody likes. Doesn't say anything. Leaves all his shut. Gets up and walks 2 days later. He's got a raise and doesn't have a supervisor anymore. Wow. That guy knew his worth to the company. That's a strong play. Yeah, I tried that in my summer job at a movie theater one time and I never even got my last paycheck. Unfortunately, you did not know your worth to the company. Went to the city court to pay off a ticket. I was upset because the wait was about an hour and a half plus. Who enjoys paying for a ticket? Finally my number gets called, and as I sit down at one of the desks an older man walks in and sees the ridiculous amount of people waiting in the queue. The man says, "Duck it, I'll just go to jail," loud enough for some of us to hear, then walks out of the building. The lady at the desk didn't think it was funny, but it made my day. The people that work in courthouses are some of the most humorless sons of mothers out there. Saw a kid playing in a mud puddle at a park. The dad was all, "No buddy, you're gonna get all muddy." The kid slowly sat down in the puddle and reclined in it, dipping the back of his hair in the puddle, then sat up quick, whipping muddy water in the air like a Pantene commercial. That was my son. My high school had what was a beauty pageant for senior dudes. It raised money for their prom. It was always in good fun. But one of the competitions was a swimsuit walk, and to keep things from going too far speedos were banned. That did not, however, stop one guy from wearing his mom's bikini in front of an auditorium full of classmates and teachers. It was as revealing as one would expect, and I have no idea how nobody stopped him before it was too late. I am 100% more concerned that his mother was cool with sharing her bikini with her teenage son. We had a guy in my high school who was your typical class clown show up to Hawaiian themed prom after party in a grass skirt and a coconut bra. By all accounts he slowed traffic as he catwalked down the street. I used to work on reception of an upscale hotel. We had an elderly, mid-80s, gentleman working as concierge who would spend his shifts chatting away to guests. He was likable and charming and often got away with being a little inappropriate. One day two ladies check in for a spa weekend. As he's walking away, rolling their luggage, I overhear his conversation. He asked them where they were from, and they replied Halifax's response. "Oh, I once had violent sex with a girl from Halifax, lovely little town." They laughed. Old people can get away with all sorts. Was on a ferry one day, standing next to a guy on the ledge. Guy was texting, dropped his iPhone into the sea. He just looked over for a second and pulled out some gum from his pocket and chewed on it and continued looking at the islands passing by. I looked at him once and he just shrugged briefly. Dude skipped straight to the acceptance stage. Zen master. I was driving behind a person wearing a hat driving their convertible with the top down on a nice summer day. For some reason they leaned their head out the car and their hat flew right off in the wind. Without missing a beat they reach over to their passenger seat and put another hat on their head. Kept driving like nothing happened. Overly complicated way of giving out free hats. At a New England boarding school, there was a kid who can best be described as a modern Mark Twain character. He grew up living on a boat, didn't wear shoes to places if he thought he could get away with it, etc. He was expelled just a few days before he graduated, I think for drug use but possibly one too many alcohol infractions. With nothing to lose, he took off all his clothes and walked stark naked from the dean's office back to his dorm. We were at a party in high school, and my buddy is wasted. Some girl comes over and starts yelling at him about him telling his ex-girlfriend to duck off, when she was trying to explain why she cheated on him. He calmly stands up, goes over to my friend's refrigerator and starts looking around without speaking. The girl goes, "Are you even listening to Emmy?" from across the kitchen. My buddy then, like a rubber band snapping, pulls out a Kraft Singles piece of cheese and throws it straight at her and it hits her in the forehead. He walked downstairs to the basement and passed out like 5 minutes later. At a high school party where everyone was drinking underage and there was around 90 people, I'll never forget watching the cops pull into the driveway and seeing every single person take off sprinting into the cornfields, rural area with a mile of corn 500 feet from the house, and with everyone sprinting away from the cops. One guy sat in a launcher and continued to drink his beer while everyone else was running around. I was watching it from the bed of my truck hiding. Gotta finish that beer. Went to one of the nicer theaters in town. A cool date night place that most people get moderately dressed up for. Place serves actual food, and it's good food too. Reclining, reserved leather seating. A bar. The whole 9 yards. There was a lady, mid-50s, early 60s, there with her husband. She was in PJs, wrapped in a blanket, carrying a pillow, and having her husband, dressed in khakis and a polo, collect tons of children's candy, and just sits down in her fucking cocoon of blankets and snacks. This lady is my inspiration. She gave zero ducks about how out of place she looked, and just wanted to be comfortable in the theater. It was awesome. I worked in a craft cocktail bar for a while, and a guest was complaining that the drink she got didn't match her preferences. She was being rather rude and condescending, and wouldn't give anyone a direct answer as to what was wrong with the drink. A guest to her right asked, "What did you ask for?" she replied, and the guest, without hesitation, grabbed her drink. He finished it in one chug, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "That's exactly what you described, and it was delicious. Don't be a ditch." We bought him all of his drinks the rest of the night. Dude around here takes his 2 pet rats with him everywhere he goes. To the shops, to the pub, you name it. Just brings them with him. I know a guy who brings his pet miniature goat to the pub. Zero ducks given. All the locals love him. Our tourists look distressed though. I worked at a call center for a while, to which, as we all know, is hell on earth. Had a coworker look my dead in the eyes and say, "Thanks for calling Verizon. Go duck yourself," and hung up. He then proceeded to log out for a 2-hour lunch. He came back, but was quickly escorted out. I have a similar story from my sister, who worked for Arby's for a while. One day the dude on drive-thru gets a text that his buddy is coming by. He sees a car pull up that he thinks is his buddy, gets on the mic, and says, "Welcome to Arby's, go duck yourself." It was not his buddy. One day at my old job, my old boss called everybody together because the upper management decided to cut some people out. This old lady overheard it from the bathroom, and then she zoomed out of there, grabbed her stuff and left before she could get properly fired. She then called the HR to tell them she was getting her paid vacation that was on hold, and hung up the phone before the HR could respond. And she turned off all possible contacts, like cell phone and emails. Then she took 30 days of paid vacation plus 4 days of paid sick leave plus 29 days of absence. In my country, The law says you can be absent for 29 straight days without being fired for just cause. When she came back, she was properly fired without just cause and got all benefits like unemployed insurance etc. I love to tell this one because I got to watch it all unfold and because I caused it, to an extent. I worked for a call center for a time, and a friend from my original training class was getting tired of it after a couple years. This is a guy for whom life has basically gone. Job, large savings, no job, little savings, rinse repeat. He lives totally minimalistically the whole time, so he came to this job after 2 years of neat life. And to neat life he was prepared to return, a hearty 3 years worth of savings under his belt. He told me he was tired of the bullshit, and he didn't want to keep working. I liked having a friend at work with his attitude, so I convinced him to instead make them fire him. He agreed, and began a very linear scale of laziness. The first week, he began a strict regiment of call avoidance. He would come in, abuse the phone status changes, take maybe one call, go on his first break, come back, take maybe one more call, go on lunch, etc. For a full week he took 4 or 6 calls a day, and no one said a damn thing. The second week, he took basically no calls. He did a great job of looking busy when important people came by. Somehow, his supervisor did not come to talk to him, and the people who monitored phone stats either overlooked him or were investigating a phone anomaly. The third week was where he really shined. We were responsible for our own timesheets, as represented on the employee website. He would come in at the start of his first break, go on break, take no calls, go on lunch, take no calls, go on break, and leave. But on his timesheet, he put his normal start and end times, to get paid for a full workday. The Friday of week 3 is when they finally came for him. I was so proud of my boy when they laid down a piece of Word doc in front of him to sign, stating he would relinquish his pay that he did not earn, which he promptly refused to sign. Since they could not compel him to sign it, the supervisor got irate, and walked him then and there. Thing is, if you are fired, you have to have an exit interview. He didn't get one, so they had to call him back in, pay him for his time, and exit interview him properly. And then of course he got unemployment to supplement his savings. He did so well he moved to Colorado. And if anyone is feeling like this company didn't deserve that level of scamming, I'm happy to report, it was Comcast. That stuck up. Was Comcast. Oh, good for him. This happened years ago. I had just been at a club and back then I didn't drink or do drugs, but I never judged if others chose to do so. This girl I was with, she wasn't a super close friend. We had some mutual friends so we saw each other a lot but didn't spend that much time together. Anyways, she had popped some pills earlier and was pretty drunk, and we're walking to the train station because we're on the same line and it's almost 2 AM and we are both exhausted. She'd taken off her heels and is walking barefoot in the middle of winter and is talking about the time she broke her arm falling off the monkey bars in school. Suddenly she decides she wants to hit up this 24-hour burger place on the way to the station. We get there and she buys me a burger because I'm short on cash, but she also buys 5 extra burgers and fries, and at the time I was teasing her about how much food she bought. Very casually she mentions that they're for a friend, and when we get to the station she walks over to a couple of homeless dudes and sits down next to them and starts chatting like they've known each other their whole lives. It was a bit awkward for me. I had never spoken to a homeless person, and these were proper homeless people, like they smelled pretty bad and were missing half their teeth. They were nice guys, but boy, it was a new experience for me. Anyways, so we're eating burgers with these stinky homeless guys and then they light up a joint and share it. The fact that she shared a joint with these toothless people really grossed me out, but I stuck around. When our train was only a few minutes away we said goodbye, and I spied her slipping them some cash after hugging each of them goodbye. We got on our train no problems, and I asked her how on earth she was good friends with random homeless people, and she laughed it off saying that she usually chills with them when waiting for the train. It was crazy to me. She had done something wonderful for another person like it was no big deal at all. It really put me in my place when I realized that I would otherwise had never even looked at someone like that. She didn't seem to care at all about the entire exchange, and that moment sticks with me as an example of someone doing something good without needing any kind of value.